Welcome to Autotown. From the factory floor to the C-suite to the dealership lot, everyone is welcome in Autotown, a place to go for insights and analysis of what's happening in the auto industry. I'm your host, Jamie Butters. Hey, I'm Jamie Butters. It's my honor to welcome you to Autotown. Autotown is your place for insights about the auto industry, representing all of its constituents. From the factory floor to the C-suite to the dealership lot, everyone is welcome in Autotown. Autotown is brought to you in part by Aumovio, a global top-tier auto supplier. We're recording on Monday, July 13th, and riding shotgun with me this week as my guest co-host is Dana Hull, reporter with Bloomberg News, where she covers Tesla and its peripatetic leader, Elon Musk. Dana, welcome to Autotown.
Jamie, thank you so much for having me.
So great to see you. A little later, we're going to stop at the coffee shop for a chat with Mike Murphy, CEO of the American EV Jobs Alliance. And in the town hall segment, we'll talk about those EVs and whether they're okay for road trips. But first, Dana and I are going to take a quick drive around the block and talk about the latest in the industry. Dana, Tesla has just started offering here in the U.S. a new, longer version of the Model Y. This is looks like 3-row version. It's a pretty substantial addition to the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the Model Y is Tesla's best-selling car, bar none. And I think that they've found a really good formula. And they have the Model Y long version in China, where apparently it's done fairly well. And so rather than start a whole new model, why not just like build on the Model Y that they have and offer this here in the US? Consumers have been asking Elon for like a bigger SUV that would fit more people and really be like a substantial family car. So they're taking orders on their website. It's not entirely clear to me what that third row seat really looks like. I have not like been to a showroom and actually seen it because, as you know, from earlier days, like the third row was kind of like a jump seat for kids. Like but this sounds like it's actually like a substantial third row that will comfortably seat adults. We'll see.
We'll see. And, the photos looked tight, so I'm wondering if it might be something more than the jump seat they used to have in some vehicles, but maybe less than the full adult size that we're seeing in some of the really spacious 3-row crossovers these days. Might be more like the previous generation, but we'll see. I would have to get our legs into them. But it seems like they kind of need some new life in that showroom. The Model S is gone, the Model X is gone. Is the Cybertruck? It's been, it's widely ridiculed, at least around here, around Michigan. But how's it, it seems like you see them, but it's not like it's going great.
Right. I mean, it's kind of amazing if you think about Tesla's market valuation. It's still one of the top 10 companies in the world. It's the most valuable automaker, but they have like literally no lineup. I mean, they have sunsetted the Model S and the X. So they right now for consumers, they have the 3, the Y, and the Cybertruck. And they also make the Semi for commercial customers. But the 3 and the Y, and it's really the Y at this point, are like the overwhelming amount of their sales. And the Cybertruck is like really low. I mean, it's astonishing. It is like, I mean, I broke a story earlier this year about how 1 in 5 Cybertrucks in the fourth quarter were actually sold to SpaceX. So Musk is absorbing that inventory via his other companies. And you do see them on the road. I see them in California. I think LA is kind of like a hot spot for the Cybertruck, as well as Texas and Florida. But and they're very, I mean, they're very visually, you see, if you notice them on the road, they are very rare. And I think a lot of the people that are buying them appear to be contractors who have their own businesses. And so you see them with a lot of, badging and advertising on the side, but they are by no means, taking on the Chevy Silverado or the or the pickups of Detroit. And I think that I just sort of question how long the company can continue to run that production line.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like their business plan is less about cars and more about, humanoid robots and maybe cybercabs, or robotaxis of some sort or another.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Elon Musk, I think, is really quite bored of building cars. And that's just sort of the way that he is and the way that his mind works. I think that when he got involved with Tesla very early on, when it was a startup, back in 2003, he really wanted to prove to the world that you could make a sleek, high performance, fast electric car that was more than a golf cart. And everyone thought he was crazy and there was no way he was going to do it. And he proved the doubters wrong, like, again and again, and that was incredibly gratifying and satisfying to him. But now that he's proven that, like, he doesn't need to keep proving that. Like, that he's now, like, he has solved that problem, and I think he thinks a lot about the geometry of physical space um and just, we're sort of at peak. I mean, I think in his mind, we're kind of at peak car. So if you'll remember, years ago, Tesla had this big plan. They were going to make 20 million units of EVs by 2030. And then a couple of years ago, they stripped that out of their annual impact report, and that is no longer the goal. And, now they make like maybe like 1.5 million cars a year, and they're not really planning to grow that amount. In his mind, like, it's much better for everybody if there's just robotaxis because robotaxis can run 24/7 and Tesla has the charging infrastructure to provide that. So yeah, he's completely pivoted the company from 20 million cars a year to robotaxis and Optimus. At the same time, it's the sale of the cars that is funding the company. I mean, that is still the biggest source of their revenue. So they've got this tricky balance where they really need to sell the Model Y while while convincing investors that the future is about autonomy and the robotaxi.
Yeah, and they need to, with some of the challenges that the so-called full self-driving system has been facing, they're going to need to convince regulators that it's really a safe option to be set loose on the streets of the world.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they call it FSD supervised, which basically means that it's not it's not actually self-driving. The driver, are responsible at all times, and they have not applied for a permit in California to do, something like what Waymo is doing. So they've kind of got this patchwork of, they've got a few robotaxis in places like Dallas and Houston and now Miami and in Austin. But their ridership is nowhere. They're not doing near the number of trips as as a rival like Waymo is.
I think about how the Elon Musk beat has really evolved over the years. When you joined Bloomberg from the San Jose Mercury News, Tesla still had a media relations staff, for one thing, but they were appalled that we would have a whole reporter just covering, Tesla and Musk's other companies like SpaceX and Solar City. Now most big news organizations have like a whole team to cover all the autos, the robots, the space travel, AI, politics, and even Elon's procreation. I think, it's like, it is just such a sprawling beat now.
Yeah, it's really a conglomerate. I mean, that's the way I think of it. And, I'm thinking back to years ago when I would talk to engineers at Tesla. And this was back in the day when, Elon was borrowing engineers from SpaceX and sending them to Tesla to help with autopilot. And engineers would say things like, well, you don't really work for like Tesla or SpaceX. You just work for Elon. And if he needs you to do something, you just sort of do it. And so we've seen that playbook over and over again where, like, it doesn't really matter where within the empire you sit. You work for him. He is the clear boss. And yeah, and now that he is the world's wealthiest person and the first trillionaire and was so involved in the 2024 elections, it's a legal beat, it's a policy beat, it's a politics beat, it's a natalism beat, it's air travel, telecommunications, satellites, defense contracting, EVs. The battery business within Tesla is actually quite strong with the mega packs, and it all kind of works together with this future of AI. In order to power those data centers, you need a lot of it. You need a lot of energy. So on the terrestrial front, Tesla has the mega packs, and then on the space front, SpaceX plans to try to do these orbital data centers.
Amazing stuff. You said, well, for the employees, it really doesn't matter which company you're at. You just work for Elon and do whatever he needs. But for shareholders, you either own SpaceX or you own Tesla. I mean, I guess you could own both, but the stock is the stock. And that conflating of the businesses, can be problematic for public companies. You guys did there were 6 byline reporters at Bloomberg worked together on a piece looking at whether Tesla and SpaceX might eventually merge. Where did that story come about? How did that come to be?
I think frankly it's just like it's kind of like Wall Street is expecting it. There are several reasons why. So if you when SpaceX filed to go public, if you read their S1 and all of the amendments, they mentioned Tesla like 80 times, and they talk about the convergence between the two companies. And people like Gwen Shotwell, the SpaceX president and COO, has said things like, "Well, like if we merge, like it would certainly make Elon's life easier." And there's just been a real shift because like a decade ago when Tesla acquired Solar City, Musk was asked on a Tesla earnings call, "Do you ever see SpaceX and Tesla combining?" And he was like, "Not really. They don't really share any products. They're very different companies." But now they actually do share a product, which is solar. So like the key to Musk's whole ambition around this energy piece is solar. He wants to get into solar production and solar manufacturing and make solar cells in the US. He's got to figure this out to do the space powered data centers. And so now there is kind of like more synergy on the product side between the two. Um, and I just also think that as an executive, he really doesn't like running a public company. Like he finds quarterly earnings calls very tiresome. He finds the he finds the questions from analysts really tiresome. He's got like a much longer time horizon than quarter to quarter. So the idea of him doing 8 earnings calls a year as opposed to 4, I just don't see how long he can handle that. But you're right, like shareholders would have to approve such a thing. I think the truth is that the shareholder base overlaps quite a bit. Elon has a lot of very loyal investors who have been with him from the beginning, and um, I could see them approving it. I don't think pension funds might not be very happy about it, but I think the large shareholders are likely in both companies.
You know, uh, I've kind of come to believe that if they don't merge, Tesla could be in a lot of trouble. I guess I should really credit probably Colin Langan at Wells Fargo for this, but you think about if the future of Tesla is all about Optimus, the humanoid robot, and about cybercabs rather than, Model Ys and such. Well, those all need the AI. They all the value, and Elon's talked about this on earnings calls, all the value is in the AI. It's in the ability of the humanoid to move around or the car to drive itself. And all of that is now at SpaceX. So
Right.
if they stay separate, is like would Tesla just become a contract manufacturer? Or they have to, pay the licensing to SpaceX. All the value is really in that other company.
Right. And if you think about like Musk's long-term vision, which has always been to populate Mars, like who's going to be sent to the moon and Mars first? It's probably going to be Optimus. Like they will train the robots to like work on other planets and be the sort of forward operating base squad. And it's interesting too because you'll remember that there was talk at some point about Tesla investing in AI or investing in XAI. And then what happened was Tesla invested in XAI and then SpaceX acquired XAI. And so, and now Tesla is selling megapacks to XAI for their data center in Memphis and also selling Cybertrucks to SpaceX. So SpaceX AI is like absorbing a lot of Tesla product. And so for Tesla employees, it just must be wild because, all along, like SpaceX was always Elon's first love and the company that he really actually founded. Whereas, and this is like a big dispute that, Tesla fanboys will always fight about, but, Tesla was the company that Elon invested in early on and then quickly took over. But SpaceX has always been his pride and joy. And within the empire of Elon, like SpaceX was always number one, and Tesla was always number two in terms of his mind. But because Tesla was the public company and SpaceX was private, a lot of investors didn't necessarily see it this way. I think what we're seeing now with SpaceX going public and the valuation is higher, like the primacy of SpaceX is becoming more real. I don't think we'll see a merger. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the stock price because the the valuation between the two companies is now narrowed. SpaceX has fallen quite a bit since the day that it IPO'd, and so will we see like a stock transaction, or SpaceX acquire Tesla, or a true merger? I think it's going to depend on how that stock rides out over the next couple of months.
Is there any sense on the timing? Is this a possible combination, a 2026 thing, or is it more likely 27, 28? Like you said, see where the stock plays out.
Yeah, frankly, I really don't know. I mean, there has been some speculation that he wants to get this done sooner rather than later, and like potentially before the midterms, because if there is a change in political power, there would be a lot more antitrust scrutiny, for example. So that's like an argument for getting it done fast, and Elon just tends to move very fast in general. But then I don't know, like Elon is the biggest shareholder of Tesla. So if he's gonna do this, he wants to optimize it for himself. And like I think he would probably maybe wait until the valuation is higher to do it. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. We're all in tenterhooks though. Like every Friday after the market closes, I'm always like double check, like make sure there's not some sneaky filing going in before a 3-day weekend.
Absolutely. Always got to watch for that, the taking out the trash on Friday Friday afternoon. Dana, thanks so much. Stick around. After this short break, we're going to stop at the coffee shop to chat with Mike Murphy, CEO of American EV Jobs Alliance. Then we'll go to the town hall to discuss this week's poll. Welcome back to Autotown. I'm Jamie Butters. Riding shotgun as my co-host is Dana Hull with Bloomberg News. We're sitting down today with Mike Murphy, CEO of the American EV Jobs Alliance. Before he became an EV advocate, he was a longtime Republican political strategist. He's also one of the hosts of Hacks on Tap podcast with David Axelrod, and former colleague of Dana's and mine on the Bloomberg TV side, John Heilman. Murphy, thanks for visiting Autotown.
Oh, my favorite place to be. Thank you, Jamie, and good to see you, Dana.
Nice to see you.
So you're a big EV advocate, and you're based in California, so you must be happy about the new budget that includes $135.5 million to spur sales of electric vehicles. This isn't just another giveaway to a bunch of rich movie stars, is it?
Spoken like a true son of my hometown, Detroit. What are those fancy Hollywood people up to? Yeah, I actually wrote the credit on a napkin. I went to see Governor Newsom about a year and a half ago. And he's a old guard pro EV guy. And he had talked originally about trying to backstop the $7,500 credit when Trump killed it. The challenge is California sells almost a third of all EVs in the U.S. So it's the leader, which is good. But $7,500 making up for a third of the whole federal market out of the already strained California budget was a problem. So we had to back off this promise. Well, I went to go see him. And again, I started this whole thing because I worry about America falling behind in manufacturing autos against the Chinese, who have a geopolitical agenda, and our free world allies as well. So anyway, I said, Governor, let's think like Detroiters here and do a conquest credit. $3,500, which is still meaningful, particularly on a lease, for first-time EV buyers only. Because we know from the research, 80 to 90% of people who get an EV, once they get over the hump, stay with one. They like it. So why don't we make sure all our tax money goes to conversion? I've taken several $7,500 credits over time. I'm not really the problem. I'm an EV fanatic. So the governor liked the idea, and he got with his staff, and we got with CARB and the California Energy Commission, Nancy Skinner, who's kind of the point on EVs there. One thing led to another, and some great legislators came on board. We originally were going for $200 million, but budget realities and the state Senate and state assembly here, they're very soft on the trucks because there are a lot of people live in warehouse zones with tremendous diesel trucking in California. So the compromise was close to $140 million. And, it's $3,500 on the hood, conquest. You got to say, my first EV. Half that amount of money for a used EV. Dealers got into it. And it's a matching fund. So the OEMs chip in half, and the state chips in half. That creates $3,500. And hopefully it'll be, enacted, happening. It's legally done. We're doing the regs at CARB in, I would say, 3 to 5 weeks. And shout out to Chris Grundler, a great Michiganian who's the EV advisor at CARB, and he's worked really hard with the staff there to make this thing happen fast so we can hit the summer selling season.
And Micah, isn't it, I could be wrong, but one of the things that has always kind of driven California policy is this understanding that air quality varies widely in the state. And the issue in California is that plenty of wealthy people who live in San Francisco and LA already own EVs. But what we really need is for folks that are driving kind of these like 12 and 13-year-old gas guzzlers in the Central Valley to feel like they can take a chance on an EV because they drive more vehicle miles and they live in regions where the air quality is really bad. And so there's also a lot of work on the utility front. Like you can get you can sort of stack rebates with your local utility. And have you been involved in that effort at all?
Well, a little bit. There are some stackable things. Now, I've been the fool on the hill on this because I want units. If I take a Bentley off the road, I'm just as happy as taking a Kia Sportage off the road from a CO2 point of view. And I know as an industry, enthusiast, that I'd like vehicles with margins to be EVs too, because, the problem with the Chinese is they're in the business of not making any money in EVs. They're in the business of deindustrializing the competition. So, it's kind of tough to be a free world auto manufacturer on this. So I think those are worthy programs. I mean, I'll do my 1-minute rant that the legislators were tired of, because you're right. There's a lot of interest in that. I think sometimes there's a presumption that CO2 stops at the county line. And so they get too geographic in their thinking. But we have a program I keep trying and failing to kill here. It's kind of a cash for clunkers deal. But here's how it works. If you're up to 300% of the poverty level, you can get up to $12,000 for an EV through a fairly thickly staffed and therefore expensive program. By thickly staffed, I mean a lot of bureaucrats, looking at the paperwork 11 times. But here's the problem. 65% of those people live in multifamily units, apartments, where they can't level 2 charge. So they've got to leave an hour early for jobs that are often very unforgiving about being late and go wait behind an Uber driver at a broken Electrify America station, potentially, though that's getting a lot better quickly. Thank you, Ayana, Tesla, EVgo, and others. And they could lose their job. So we're giving them a terrible EV experience. So our argument at evsforalamerica.org, check us out, is multifamily level 2 charging. That's the equity issue. Let people in apartments be able to charge EVs cheaper than a fast charging station, and easily overnight. And we're getting a lot of traction on that. Stay tuned for next year. But you're right. There is a lot of interest in the legislature for that kind of climate equity zones. There's a lot of interest in MSRP limits. And the California bill has a $50K MSRP limit unless you're Rivian or Lucid. So you can get that Gravity for $100K and get your $3,500, which we're for. We don't like limits. We want units, conversion. I will say, because you have a Detroit audience here, the North American manufacturers, starting with the Detroit folks, but also some of the foreigners, need to wake up. I could barely get a lobbyist to return the call to get this bill done. Lucid, Rivian, Scout, and to their credit, Ford, went to work. And I've got some of the big three saying now, a large company that's not Colonel Motors, but close, saying, hey, how come there's a limit? Well, why don't you guys show up for the damn meetings in Sacramento? So that's just my little angry message to the industry I care so much about, that sleepwalking, there's a good Chinese word for it called we win. So that's my rant. Thank you that's the editorial corner. But I'm glad we passed it. And it's other states are interested now. We want to spread this thing everywhere. Conquest credit.
I think it's interesting you said that Scout supported it. I wouldn't have thought their vehicles would be priced to qualify. I guess they're hoping they'll have some that'll get under it.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get ahead of the future, and they know we're going to other states, including Michigan, by the way, where the minority leader there, Ranjit Puri, is a former Stellantis guy and is the biggest EV advocate I've met in public office. And he may become speaker if there's a big Democratic wave. So keep an eye on Michigan for interesting policy coming. He's a champ on this stuff. And he knows, unlike some of the leadership that's 3 years and out, that we either compete in EVs, as Farley said, or we're going to get cooked in the worldwide market. So I think other states are going to follow. And I think Scout wanted to kind of start to condition it categorically, even though they really don't have a vehicle that'll do this. The other thing we push a lot, no PHEVs but EREVs, yes, because EREVs are fundamentally electric vehicles with a range assist, as opposed to PHEVs, where there's very little data to indicate more than 20% of owners ever plug the darn things in, or at least plug them in regularly. So, and the regulators, I think, are kind of landing in that direction. I'm not really against PHEVs, but they're not EVs. They're gas cars with a muscular EV component. I mean, we own a PHEV Range Rover. My wife got, and I snicker with the mechanics, loving my wife as I do, that we're dragging around a $40,000 engine on the 12 miles electric she drives every day. So the engineering elegance of a PHEV is debatable, but people like them. They are a consumer win.
And, you're right. The behavior is hard to tell. I think in California, especially when they would get access to the HOV lane, you could buy a Jeep PHEV and just drive it like a regular car and never plug it in. But man, around here, especially when the first ones, the Volts came out, which were arguably EREVs, to me, they are the same. We can debate that as folks here like to do. But, anyone who had one of those Volts, at least around here, they all got 1,000 miles to the gallon. They never, they did charge them up and drive them and, and stay within it. My dad has one out there in California. He loves not buying gas, man. When there's 6s and 7s up on the sign, he's thrilled to drive by there and not have to pay for it.
Yeah, we joke, it's an old Dennis Miller joke, that in California we pay minibar prices for gasoline. So yeah, I agree. There's room for them, but you get back to that multifamily charging thing. Although with a PHEV, you can charge into the equivalent of a lamp socket and get, almost what you need overnight. But yeah, we're BEV and EREV is our focus, because we think those are the exploitable markets to help the conversion to battery electric.
There's another incentive, Mike, that you might be aware of. The CPUC just passed something to encourage like Uber and Lyft drivers to go EV because they drive so much, and so many of the vehicle miles traveled are now folks in rideshare, especially in cities. So there's an incentive at the CPUC level for the drivers.
Yeah, there is, and the companies have done that, though they're pulling back a little, because one of our problems is, I've driven a non-Tesla EV, CCS EV across the country from LA, the diagonal way, to Boston 4 times, every summer. I'm about to do it again going back home. I'm in New Hampshire right now. And the highway charging is now pretty good. It really is. There are a few patches, but you really can have a stress-free, easy experience. The dense urban charging is still a problem. It takes 3 years in California to build a fast charging site. It'll cost you $1.5 million, and you probably won't make any money on it. It's kind of ridiculous because we're the best dense market for EVs. So rideshare drivers get caught in that. And actually, one of the rideshare companies, and we've gotten some support from them, did a little internal study, and they think for one of their EV drivers, and they're heavily EV now, in a urbanized area, San Francisco, Greater Los Angeles Metroplex, their personal income would rise $400 to $600 a month, money in their pocket, if they had home charging for an EV, but most are in apartments, which is, again, another winding road back to multifamily. Our favorite little statistic, if California had level 2 overnight charging in apartment buildings at the same level we currently do in single-family homes, and adjusted down for the income delta between the two groups, California apartment residents alone would be the 4th largest market for EVs in America. And we have this study on our website. So that we're very focused on dealer incentives, cracking multifamily, and then conversion credit of up to 4K. Those are our 3 big pushes, and we're trying to make California the biggest early adopter. Now, you need permitting reform. We're doing a lot of work on that because it is remarkably hard to build a fast charging station here. My office is on a street with 30,000 cars every 24 hours, right by the 10 freeway, which will take you to Jacksonville, Florida, if you want, or Santa Monica. EVgo has tried for 3 years to get a station commissioned there. The weeds are now higher. Well, they were higher than the chargers. So I kept writing crazy letters and threatened to break in and cut them myself. And they're I had to get the governor personally involved to trench the power into this 10 or 8 dispenser, beautiful $2 million site because it's so damn hard to build a fast charging station in urbanized California. So hopefully we'll fix some of that too.
So, Mike, you're fighting the battle state by state. Obviously, we have a midterm election coming up and then a presidential election a couple years after that. Is there a path for a federal EV incentive again, or has Donald Trump just politicized the technology too much to be palatable in Washington?
Yeah, I like to joke that President Trump, and I'm one of these anti-Trump Republicans, is the best president the Chinese auto industry ever had between tariffs and gutting EVs. The partisan divide is really there, but it's melting. We do a poll every year. You can get it on our site, evsforalamerica.org, where we ask people all these division questions. That's why I founded this thing. I went out and paid for a political poll myself because I've been running campaigns. I know how to move public opinion. And the real problem is the environmental stuff. I'm always telling the companies, take the green leaves off the car. The environmental thing does not sell EVs. People who care about climate know all about EVs. They want to know about charging, range, cost. But among the 40% of the auto market that veers right of center, 20% in the middle, and the rest Democratic, largest priority is Republican leaning. They go berserk because it's dogma. We have politicized climate here. So you got to decouple from that. You got to talk about fast, fun to drive, no spending $2,000 to $3,000 a year on gas. Yeah. And I'm sure your research says the same thing. So it's getting better. It used to be, we used to ask a question on our poll, true or false. EVs are for people who see the world differently than I do. A real tribal question. And Republicans 59% used to agree with that. Now it's split. Elon, believe it or not, has done a lot to take the edge off it with Republicans. He's not done a lot for the Tesla brand overall, but he's been good there. So it's stalling, but it's a problem. We're starting a project now with the Atlanta Institute at Harvard on climate, on preparing a smart NEVI 2.0, because what will happen is if a Democrat gets elected, they'll pull out the old file and say, well, why don't we do this again? Let's learn from our mistakes and do something better this time. So I think there's hope. Finally, nobody in Michigan, particularly in the auto GR world, other than, again, I think the Ford folks, understand how vital and important Michigan will be in the next presidential race. It is highly likely the Michigan primary moves up. So the big four you got to win to be the Democrat nominee for president is going to be South Carolina, Michigan, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Those are going to be the big four, almost certainly. And so that's where we got to put American auto manufacturing, including EVs, despite what the UAW says, which is out of touch on this, because it's run by a bunch of guys who worry about the next 4 years till retirement, not whether or not the younger members will have an industry to work in, and really make the candidates bolt down to a smart automotive policy as they go through the gauntlet of the Michigan primary. The industry's never had more leverage in picking a president than they will in the next presidential cycle. And that is an opportunity not to be wasted because, I'm a political hack. I've worked for pharma. They call me up. What's the problem? We need to do this. All right, here's 10 million. Go do it. The auto guys are like, well, jeepers, I'm retiring next year. It's already lost. It's over. All right, here's $1,000. It is unbelievable how underweight the auto industry punches. And I started this because if it wasn't for the auto industry, I'd be digging ditches. So my whole family's been employed in one way or the other by it since my grandfather showed up at the Hudson Motor Car Company.
Well, Mike, appreciate your perspective on the auto industry and for the update on California's EV support. We're going to take a short break and then we'll go to the town hall and talk about EV road trips. Hey, and hear ye. That's right, we're at the Autotown Town Hall. I'm Jamie Butters, and riding shotgun as my co-host is Dana Hull, who covers Tesla and Elon Musk for Bloomberg News. And we're joined by Mike Murphy, CEO of the American EV Jobs Alliance. Now, I don't own an EV yet, but I often get to drive them. I think they're great for driving around town, and I'll go out into the state a bit. I'm not really excited to go on a long road trip where I don't know where the chargers are. So I wanted to ask the good people of Autotown, how long of a trip would you be comfortable taking in an electric vehicle? 20 miles, 200 miles, 2,000 miles, or no way, wouldn't do it. Dana, the availability of public charging remains a big concern for a lot of consumers. Tesla really got ahead of the curve on that with its Supercharger network and with road trips in mind, the destination chargers that you were writing about more than a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give Tesla credit. Like they basically built this charging infrastructure by themselves because the federal government wasn't going to do it, and the Supercharger network is awesome and it's everywhere. And I think that there's a perception that, oh my God, I'm going to get stranded on the side of the road and I'm not going to be able to move. If you're in a Tesla, frankly, that does not happen because like the navigation system in the car shows you exactly where your next charger is. And if you're not paying attention, like it'll be like, hey, like you should like pull over at this exit and you should charge here. And the charging experience is pretty nice. Like I rented a Tesla and drove to LA and on the I-5, which is like a horribly boring road to drive on. Gosh, where is it? It's like halfway through. I mean, you pull over, you charge, there's a cafe, there's like solar
Probably
power.
Kettleman.
Yes.
It might be Kettleman with a
exactly. It must be
K, and there's a
Kettleman. Yeah.
huge EA station there and a third-party one. It's the
Right.
easiest place to charge in the world.
Right. So I've never had a problem when I've been driving a Tesla. I've rented a Hyundai once, and that thing gets an amazing amount of range. And so I don't think I had to charge it at all before I returned it back to the dealer. So I think it's just experience, like, I mean, and EV drivers know this. Like you basically just plan where you're going to charge, and everybody has their like favorite charging stop and like the place that they like to go to, or the Tesla Diner in LA is like a big place now where people like to charge. And then most people who can afford to buy an EV own their own home, so they charge overnight at home. So it's really not a problem. I think what happened in some cases was people would rent an EV for the first time from like Hertz, have no idea what they were doing. People, didn't educate them about charging, and so you had some snafus with like first timers. But you learn pretty quickly, like, oh yeah, charge overnight and like make sure that I can charge between point A and point B. And you have to plan for it, but it's not like a huge lift, I don't think. And I think it's kind of nice. Like you plug in the car and then you go get a cup of coffee or run an errand or something. I mean, there's chargers now at Whole Foods, and I mean, there's all kinds of places to charge. I haven't tried the public charging network, which I think still has a ways to go, but look at the Tesla Supercharger map. They're everywhere.
Yeah, when you can find them. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm sure maybe it's better in a Tesla. I have the Tesla app on my phone, and just trying to find the charger that is 2 miles from my house, it gave me the wrong address, and I was just driving around and around in the neighborhood, instead of finding the Meyer parking lot where where they are. But now I know where they are, and hopefully they would be better. But Mike, you said you drive all the way about the longest distance possible within the contiguous 48 repeatedly.
Yeah. And it's a piece of cake, particularly last year, and I think it will be this year. So a few tips. One, if you have a non-Tesla vehicle, you can get an adapter. Don't buy the cheap one on Amazon. Get the OEM one or Electron or A to Z, because there's a lot of power going through it. Costs you $160. And for most makes, you can plug into one of those ubiquitous Tesla stations. But the OEMs got together and funded IONNA, ONNNA, terrific stations, in my view, better than Tesla. Walmart is building a ton of new stations. It's now really easy on the highway system. There are some apps you should get. PlugShare on your phone. It's great. There are apps where you put the route in your phone and it tells you all your station options complete with a rating for the station's speed and is it up and running or not. The best one is called a Better Route Planner. There's one called ChargeWay. Rivian owns Better Route Planner, and they actually upgrade from the stations to current functioning. So it's never been easier. It's like driving an airbag car, being worried the airbag's going to blow up in your face and kill you. Once you've done it, the fear disappears. And in fact, I'm going to do the official EVs for All America Autotown Challenge here, Jamie. We are going to find a road trip, you and me. I'll show up with an EV and I'll take you to Des Moines from Michigan or Florida, a good road trip, and you will be a fanatic by the end of it, and we will be pulling you away from the EV dealership because the truth is it's so much easier. And here's the last quick secret thing. My first time across the country was a Volkswagen ID4, not a cutting edge, but a perfectly adequate. You can buy them used cheap. I'd check it out. EV, not Tesla friendly. You have to go to regular places where back then there was more trouble. The little secret to a road trip I found going across Nebraska and this great state of Iowa was in a regular car. After I've done about 380 miles, my back hurts. I'm getting a little fatigued. I'm turning the radio up. In an EV, you do the 250 miles and spend your 3 hours. You pull over, you plug in for 20 minutes. You take a walk, you go to the bathroom at the stop and go, you get back in the car, you're recharged. I could do 600 miles a day standing on my head because of those 2 little breaks I got, kind of mandatory, that I thought I'd hate. Go, go, go. Instead, it made the drive a hell of a lot better. So I wrote a Substack about driving a car across America first time as an EV 3 years ago. You can find on Substack. And it's like a trip diary. And I'm going to do a new one on my trip back in a fancier car.
I did
So
a
we're
trip.
going to go on that road trip, Jamie.
I did a trip a couple years ago around the like Washington D.C., Pennsylvania, West Virginia, like region where Tesla has chargers at all the sheets, which is like a Wawa. I don't know, Jamie, if you've ever been to one, but it's like a nicer version of 7-Eleven. They have food, they're clean, they run 24 hours. But they found that for them as a convenience store, there's a huge upside to having an EV because of what they call dwell time. So to your point, like when you fill up for gas, you stop, you get the gas, you keep going. When you stop to charge, you really do have to stop. You have to take a break and walk. So you might as well buy food. So they actually find that EV owners spend more money, at their convenience store. And it does kind of give you that break that you frankly need after sitting for so long anyway. So then you come back the car is fully charged, you're a little recharged, you've bought some snacks or whatever, and then you're ready to go on.
You got 10 minutes to do all that email and texting so you don't kill anybody, including yourself on the highway. All that pressure's gone because you have a little break.
All right, we'll see if you two can talk up the voters and get them to go for the long haul here. All right, everyone else out there, let us know what you think. Go to the Autotown with Jamie Butters LinkedIn page or other social media sites to cast your vote. You can, if you leave a comment, I may read it on the air this Saturday morning. Autotown Radio is every Saturday at 7 a.m. on WJR 760. Thank you, everyone, for visiting Autotown today. Thank you to Dana Hull and Mike Murphy for joining me today. This show was produced by Matthew Peach at M1 Studios. Original artwork is by Shelley Trombley. Maya Keener is on social media. The theme song is A Hoot. It was composed by Jonathan Franco. Very special thank you to our sponsor, Almovio, a top-tier supplier. If your business is interested in becoming a sponsor of Autotown, please contact executive producer James Davies. You can be an active citizen of Autotown. Follow the show on LinkedIn to participate in the weekly poll. You can also follow Autotown on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever is your favorite social network. Audio can be found on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts. And of course, you can visit Autotown every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on 760 WJR in Detroit. I'm Jamie Butters. Sorry, let's try it again. Hey, I'm Jamie Butters, and if you're hearing this, you're probably looking for my show, Autotown. In a weird quirk, for a while we had 2 podcast feeds, one for the radio show and a separate one for podcasts that were never on the radio. Now we have all the shows posting on Autotown with Jamie Butters. That's Autotown, one word, AUTOTOWN, Autotown with Jamie Butters. You'll find what you're looking for. We'll see you there. Thanks.